I've been on YouTube since the beginning. Back in 2005, it was just a small video platform, and it looked like it was full of viruses. I remember watching the first video called Meet Me at the Zoo. Over the years, I had many channels and dreamed of being someone on the platform, but it never happened. It didn't matter what I tried, I always failed. So I became what they called a lurker. A lurker is someone who just watches, but I never interact with anyone in chat or even in live streams. I've watched thousands of streams, and of course I had my favorite channels that I watched every day. If you pay close enough attention, you can learn everything about people as they belch out hours of useless garbage about their personal lives and things they do. I'd watch and pick up on every detail of what they said, where they were at, what their daily routine was. I had stacks of notebooks full of data I'd collected over the years. I could almost predict what color of clothes they would wear on the next stream, or where they would be, or what time the stream would go live. I was an autodidact with a hint of OCD, so I had the unique capability of understanding complex information quickly, and I could recall the smallest details months later. I hadn't told anyone about what I could do. It gave me a hand up in business many times. But over time, it cost me most of my family and friends because they would say something, and I'd correct them by pointing out what they had said in a previous conversation. In other words, I pointed out where they were changing their story, and I'm sure they thought I was calling them a liar. So I became an introvert outside of my job. It was Sunday night, and I was doing what I always did, sitting in front of my laptop, scrolling the endless content on YouTube. I know I needed to get out of the slump I was in and never watch again. I was 17 years in and was running my life. I was completely addicted and couldn't stop watching. I was living vicariously through other people's lives as mine slipped by. I think I really needed a social life. I finally decided that tonight was the last night. I was finished. Leaning back in my chair, I pulled my fingers through my hair, took a deep breath, and reached forward to click the mouse to close the window. Then I saw the notification bell light up telling me that someone in my subscriber list just posted a video. Don't click it, I said to myself. Just turn your laptop off and forget about it. Stopping the arrow halfway down the page, I stood up and walked away. I made a sandwich, grabbed a beer, and sat in the kitchen table to eat. I was looking out the window and found myself peering over at my laptop. No, I said to myself. I stood up and sat with my back to my computer and looked out the sliding glass door. I saw the trees moving gently in the wind. For a few minutes, I thought about how it would feel to leave my house each day and feel the warm sun all the time. Forget about being online and really start to live my life. I finished my sandwich and put the half beer back in the fridge. I leaned on the sink and picked up on a sour smell of the week-old dishes that needed to be rinsed and put in the dishwasher. I simply didn't have the energy to tackle the smallest of tasks in my life. It's time to go to bed, I whispered to myself. I walked down the hallway, found my way into my room, and laid down. The ceiling fan had a small ticking sound as it spun. I kept it on its lowest setting to have some airflow during the night. Staring at it for a few moments, I felt myself relax. My mind started to move in the rhythm with each turn and each click. Some people listen to the radio or leave the TV on. I just watched the fan and listened to the click, and I'd nod off to sleep. I turned on my side, grabbed my pillow, pulled my blanket tight, and realized I needed to go pee. Damn it. I stood up and walked to the bathroom in the hall, finished my business, and noticed the light on in the living room. Wow, one thing after another tonight, big boy, I said out loud. Walking through the kitchen, I reached for the switch and my eyes locked onto that laptop and that damn YouTube notification. Flipping the switch, I turned to go to my room and I stopped. I hated myself for being so weak. I gripped both of my hands together and shook my fingers apart. Come on, man, go to bed. It was never going to happen. Sitting on my couch, I reached for the mouse and clicked on the notification bell. It was a streamer that was out of North Carolina. His channel was called Robert's RV Reel Streams. He was sort of a pudgy hillbilly that would lay on his bed, eat fast food, and scream at the side chat as they posted crazy comments about him. He was dim-witted. I don't think he was playing with a full deck of cards. In fact, there wasn't a stream that went by that he didn't yell about being disabled or something to that effect. It seemed to be a badge of honor for him. Sometimes he would wear a hat with off-brand sunglasses perched on the rim, and other times he'd show off the shine of his bald head. Most nights he wore a bunch of fake jewelry and rings and would pull out a bunch of $20 bills and act like he was something. I think everyone knew that it was just his monthly welfare check. There were a few people in the side chat that knew just what to say to get him triggered. He'd start to scream, ban people, issue all kinds of threat, and wish that the people commenting would die. It seemed to be a never-ending trail of anger and garbage until he finally rage quit and shut down the stream. When he clicked to end the stream, I knew the chat had gotten what they wanted. Him to be pissed off and quit. Wash, rinse, repeat. Every night the same thing. He was the most ridiculous person on YouTube that people would click to watch the mayhem. I clicked on the link and a countdown appeared. There was 11 minutes and 15 seconds until the live stream started. I'd never seen this before on his channel. Now I was intrigued. What was he doing? What was the big premiere? The thought of not watching YouTube was long gone from my mind as I stared at the screen. The countdown ended, the live stream started, and there he was, laying on his bed pulling 3 double cheeseburgers, fries, and a jumbo-sized drink out of a bag. With a dumb grin and a mouthful of gnawed-down teeth, he said, "Hey everybody." He didn't have a manly voice, but it wasn't female either. Somewhere in between, I guess. He spoke hillbilly English, peppered with triple negatives and broken sentence fragments. Most of the time he yammered on about things he knew nothing about, and how jealous everyone was that they couldn't live his life. Ripping the tinfoil off the burgers, he started to devour them like he hadn't eaten for months. He started talking and pieces of food were shooting out of his mouth as he rambled on about his broken, roach-infested RV that he bought for $1,200. People in the side chat started in on him, and you could see the rage build. He plowed more food in his mouth and guzzled a jumbo-sized iced tea. As he read comments, he exploded. "Why don't you just go to fucking hell, you loser? Why do you people keep bothering me?" he screamed. "I hope you all fucking die. If all of you got AIDS, I'd celebrate. One day, you will all get what's coming to you, and that's me kicking your asses. You want to go to Alcatraz? You want me to end this stream? Come to my house and make me. I'll end you, you sons of bitches. I just don't know why people can't leave each other alone." Here we go, I thought. Dude's gonna do the shortest rage quit stream ever. But that's not what happened. He kept spewing the most vile, hurtful things I'd ever heard. It was way over the top, even for him. Then I saw it. He was screaming and stuffing French fries in his mouth, and something moved into the screen. It was standing right behind him. My heart pounded and I froze. A bolt of fear crushed up my spine. What was that? And were other people seeing it? My mind was in sensory overload. It stood about 8 feet tall as it hunched over. It had a deep blood-red mist surrounding it. Its face was covered in an ivory-colored bone with deep sunken black eyes, and jagged scars were everywhere on its face. A thin layer of clear skin seemed to pull back and reveal every battle wound. Its ears were partially pinned back and had hooks on its tips. Half of one ear was missing. It looked like it had been torn off. Its large forehead held 2 long horns. They came right out of the front of his skull and turned upward into a complete spiral. The horns were worn and many chips and pieces were missing. Its nose was deformed and seemed not to fit in. It also had a large tear across the right side of it. The bottom half of his face looked as if it had been lit on fire. The skin had melted and then turned hard again. Its hairline started at mid-scalp, and long black fur, like locks, ran down past its shoulders and over its chest. The same thick animal hair covered its whole body. I wasn't breathing or blinking. I was just trying to understand what I was seeing. I cleared my eyes, and then it happened. It leaned down right on top of him and opened his mouth. I thought it was going to bite him, but it didn't. It had long black and red teeth that were mangled in all directions. some rotted out, some just broken. A thick black fluid ran over its gums. It was dripping out of its mouth but never left the mist. For just a moment, a long wiry tongue slipped out as if it was going to touch or taste, but it pulled right back in. It leaned so close I couldn't see any space between them. It opened its mouth wider and exhaled. The breath floated out and fell across him like a fog moving into the stormy night. It covered the whole bed. Then a hand appeared. It came out from underneath his fur. Milkish black skin dripped off it into the mist. The hand had the same bony appearance as his head and face. It reached down and rested its hand right on Robert's neck. The fingers began to grip and I thought he was going to choke him. And it stopped. I realized that I was beginning to pass out from lack of breathing and fell back on my couch. After a long inhale, I looked at the screen and it was gone. The fat hillbilly was still screaming about nothing and kept shoving food down his throat. He looked like a pig in a trough, I thought. I stood up and it took me several minutes to come to terms with what I had just seen. Was it real? Was I dreaming? Did I have a stroke? What the hell was that? I thought to myself. I walked into the kitchen and drank a glass of water, and all I could hear was the venomous words spewing out of the laptop. Then I did what I hadn't done in over a decade. I started to type in the chat. Did you guys see that? What the hell was that? But there was no response from anyone. The chat just continued like there wasn't anything out of the ordinary. I typed again. Come on, guys. What the fuck was that? What was that in his room? Quit fucking around. What was that? Again, nothing. I looked back at the screen and he was threatening to cut it off, and all of a sudden, it went black. Immediately, a message popped up in bold, block red letters. This video has been corrupted. Then the chat instantly disappeared. I moved the mouse over to refresh the page, and when I did, my laptop just turned off. What the hell, I thought. I'd never seen anything like that in almost 2 decades on YouTube. Closing the lid on my laptop, I had the most unnerving feeling. I stood up, turned off all the lights, and laid down. What did I just see? Was that real? My mind wanted to believe that what I saw was real, but common sense told me I'd been on YouTube too long. I rolled over and dropped into sleep. The next day, I'll admit I was a little shaken by what I'd seen the previous night. But I was late to work and hurried out the door. All day, I couldn't get what I'd seen out of my mind. All I could think of was getting home and clicking on the channel to see what was there, to see if I was going crazy. Finally, the day ended, and I headed home. I drove with a purpose, weaving in and out of traffic. Pulling up to my driveway, I clicked the garage door. It shut, and I moved into my house. I went straight to the laptop and turned it on. It seemed to take forever to boot up. Opening the YouTube shortcut on my desktop, my eyes searched for the channel. I had to scroll down a bit on the left side of the screen, but I found it. Robert's RV Real Streams. I left-click on the mouse and the channel came right up. I searched to see if the video was online. It wasn't. It was gone. Scrolling up to the top of the page, I wanted to see if anything had changed on his channel. It was all the same. The circle with his stupid face grinning like a Cheshire cat, and the banner of him standing in front of his RV, acting like he was king of the world. If what I had seen was real, where did the video go? Why wasn't it listed? Shaking my head, I scanned some of the other recent videos. I doubled the view speed and skipped from video to video he posted over the last month. Nothing. A couple of weeks went by, and I stayed away from the channel. No use stressing myself out, I thought. I started to work a little more and watch a little less. I felt like I was making progress on my addiction. It was Friday night, and things were going so well I thought I'd grab some beers, turn on Netflix, and finish watching some crime series I'd stopped watching a few months ago. I downed a couple of beers and felt a pretty good buzz coming on. I'd forgotten how relaxed I felt after a few drinks. I had a 12-pack and sat back and drank one after another. Within a few hours, I was drunk. I tried to stand up and fell back on the couch. I started to laugh as I pushed myself up. I pulled the fridge door open and saw that it only had 2 beers left. I didn't realize I'd drinking so much. One more, I thought. Cracking the bottle open, I sat back down on the couch. The Netflix bar was crawling across the screen to start the next episode. I reached down and logged out. I guzzled the beer like I was in high school again and placed the bottle next to the 10 other empties. I felt a tickle in my mind as I thought about Robert's RV streams. I didn't realize it, but my mind had missed the dopamine rush it received as I clicked up from video to video each night on YouTube. I scrolled the mouse up and clicked on the link. It was so crazy. The first video that popped up in my live feed was Robert's RV reel streams. There he was, in all of his glory, screaming away at the side chat again. Someone asked if he was live. He shook his head and said, "What do you mean, am I live? Of course I'm live, you bastards. You couldn't talk to me in chat if I wasn't live. I'm live," he said. "I'm gonna send all you motherfuckers to Alcatraz for being so dumb," he yelled. He read the chat again and said, "No, I'm not gay. I love women. I've had hundreds of women, probably more than all of you bastards put together." He was now in full meltdown mode. I started to laugh and went and grabbed the last beer and sat back down. He was going on about all the things he'd found while dumpster diving and kept yelling at people. He had a large mirror hanging on the back of his wall right behind his bed. Depending on the angle of his camera, you could sometimes see the TV where he would watch himself and read the comments. He started to get really mad, and I noticed something appearing in the mirror. There it was again. It wasn't behind him, it was standing in front of him, right to the side of the TV. It looked different this time. It looked very angry, and all the features I saw last time were completely enhanced. His eyes were glowing blood red and were locked right on Robert. I dove right into the chat and sounded the alarm. "What is that in the mirror?" I wrote in capital letters over and over. I was spamming the chat. "What the fuck is that?" I kept spamming. No one responded, and Robert told me to quit spamming the chat, "You motherfucker," and then he put me in a 300-second timeout. I kept watching, and the stream ended. The same words appeared, the chat disappeared, my laptop went blank, and I thought, wow, what should I do? Should I call the police? Notify YouTube? Ah, screw it, I said. I was so drunk, I just went to sleep. Part 2. It's been 3 months since I logged into YouTube. The thought of seeing that again and listening to Robert scream was enough to keep me off. It was July 4th and the heat was brutal. No one could be outside until in the evening. I just finished a late dinner and walked out to my porch to see if I could see any fireworks from my neighbors. I heard and saw a few in the hour I sat there. Nothing exciting though. All of a sudden I heard a loud beeping noise coming from my house. I thought it was my home alarm, so I rushed in. I hadn't set it, but it must have malfunctioned, I thought. I looked at the keyboard and there was nothing wrong. It wasn't armed. And then I realized the beeping was coming from my laptop. I must have accidentally unplugged it and the battery alarm was going off. I sat down, opened the screen, and clicked on the mouse. But there was no boot up sequence or password login. Nothing. The screen just flickered, and a few seconds later a full screen window opened up. It was a live stream of Robert. The anxiety was instant. My fear was real now. What the hell, I thought. I was actually afraid. How was this happening? I didn't log into anything. There was no sound on the stream. I could just see him laying in his bed. The screen went fuzzy and blinked a few times, and then it tilted. The view changed. I didn't see him like normal, laying sideways on his bed. I was now looking down on him as if the roof had been removed. I could see all 4 walls and the trash all over the bedroom. He reached forward and turned off his TV and computer, but the stream on my laptop didn't end. I was now watching him in real time and space. He moved around the house, tripping over the trash, and then he laid down and turned the lamp off in the room. The second he turned the lights out, there it was, standing in the corner watching him. There was a deep red pulse of light that lit the room. I couldn't look away. Hours went by and the creature didn't move, and neither did Robert. 7 hours later, the sun came up, and I guess I must have nodded off. My living room was full of light. I rubbed my eyes and looked at the screen, and there he was driving down the road. And bending over right next to him was the creature. I watched him pull into the local grocery store and get out. Whatever it was following him everywhere. There was only about a foot of room between him and the creature as he walked around the store. I called into work and told them I was sick and made sure my laptop was securely plugged in. Hours went by and the stream never ended. I was seeing everything he did and everywhere he went from above. By the end of the day, the creature and him had almost become one. I didn't dare walk away from my laptop, but I was starving. What if I left and the stream ended? I DoorDashed some food and asked them to slip it into the house so I could grab it quickly and not miss a thing. He finally made it home. There was a knock on the door as it swung open, and I smelled the food I ordered. Moving quickly, I picked it up and returned to my couch. I saw Robert throw down his food and climb onto his bed. His new unknown friend was standing right between him and his TV. He reached forward, turned on his computer, and started to stream. The second he went live, the sound started up on my computer. I could hear every word, see every move. It was at this point I realized I had gone crazy. What the hell was I seeing? This wasn't real. How was this happening? Did I develop dementia over the last several months and didn't realize it? I needed some serious psychiatric help, I thought. I must have been losing my mind. I rubbed my eyes and said out loud, "This is not real." I walked over, unplugged my laptop, and laid down on my couch. The news said they'll make you go crazy through the addictive algorithms. After 20 years of YouTube, they accomplished their goal. My mind was fried. Part 3. Over a year had passed since that night. I never touched my laptop and it remained unplugged. In fact, it was just like another piece of furniture you bought and you never looked at. The dust had built up on my laptop and I didn't want to touch it, but it was horrible looking. If anyone came to my house, I'd be so embarrassed. I took a wash rag over and started to clean it up. Some of the dust was so sticky, it took some work to get it off. I finished and it started to beep again. "Oh God, no," I said in a low voice. I bit down and clenched my fists and turned to look. But there was something different this time. I'd actually been on computers since DOS was created. With modern computers, you don't see a boot up screen because they don't use DOS as the basic building block. You simply see a login screen. But a couple of decades back, computers had a black screen that scrolled commands when they turned on. Back then, the boot process in most PCs after the power on self-test, or the post, comprised checking all of the master boot records, or the MBRs, in which boot code existed. Once found, that boot code is executed. The code searches for an extended DOS partition, and then determines if there is a bootable partition specified in the partition table. If no boot partitions are marked as active, the boot process will terminate with an error. If one is found, the master volume or boot selector is loaded into memory and tested, and the boot code that it contains is given control of the remainder of the boot process. The DOS boot code searches the root directory of the devices being booted from the operating system files or the ISO.sys. It's executed and then runs the MS-DOS.sys. DOS has the concept of internal commands and external commands. But simply, internal commands are those that are built into and therefore recognized by the command com or the command interpreter. You can run these internal commands without any external files being present. An example of this is when a directory command comes up on the screen to list the different directories. External commands are simply those that have their own file. My computer, which wasn't loaded with DOS, was running the command lines. The scrolling ended and a gray square blinked in front of the word "Login." I looked at it and my password self-populated. The long command line executed and the screen went black for a few seconds. Then a gray-black window opened, and there was Robert again. He was sitting in a chair on the back porch fumbling through some mail. The creature was bent all the way over, and his face was directly in front of Robert. The red from his eyes lit up Robert's face, and a black misty breath circled around his head. It reached out and placed its hands on Robert's face. The fingers slid around the back of his head and started to grip tighter and tighter. Suddenly, Robert started to shake. The tighter the grip, the more he shook. He dropped the mail and his arms and legs started to seize. Every muscle activated, and his back arched and his body locked. The creature released him and he dropped to the ground. Minutes went by and the creature stood all the way up, and its head just drooped down. It was simply looking at him. Finally, Robert started to move and sat up. I could tell he didn't know what happened. He just looked around. He stood up and stumbled back into the house, and of course his new friend followed. The door shut behind them. My screen started to pan out, and I saw his house and another one right next door. His was much smaller than the other, but they must have been owned by the same people. They were painted off yellow with red trim around the doors and windows. I saw his van and RV parked out to the side of the house. The angle didn't change. It seemed as if it was frozen. But as I watched, the darkness took over, and all I could see were dim porch lights on either house. I didn't know what to feel. I was just numb from what I was witnessing. I couldn't believe it. I didn't dare touch my laptop. It was beyond me now. Part 4. I looked at my phone and it was 1:37 a.m. I was still in front of the laptop and nothing had changed. The same panoramic view was there. I felt a wave of tiredness wash over my body. A red light appeared in the upper right corner of the screen. The word live then appeared. I blinked and it was Robert's room, and the volume was on again. He looked into the camera and his face was heavily injured. The stripes of bruises and cuts rolled around the back of his head, right where the creature had held him. The chat immediately started asking him what was wrong with his face and what had happened. For the first time in all the videos I'd watched, he was actually frightened. He was looking at his TV and started to pull his face and move his head to see the damage. Leaning back, he looked like he was lost. He started to read the chat and didn't reply to any comments. He just closed his mouth and a sorrowful look took over. The chat was rolling with comments, too fast to read any of them. The word got out and he had thousands of viewers that turned in to see the damage. On a good night, he may pull in a few hundred people. He laid down, doubled up some pillows, and said in a small voice, "I don't know what happened, guys. I just woke up like this." I looked down, and the viewer count was 4,248. Normally, you would have the camera focused and to just show the front of his med chest and up to his face. But as everyone watched, the camera zoomed out. You could almost see his whole room. He was curled up and looked into the camera, and then it happened. The creature came into view. The chat exploded. I realized that everyone could see what I'd been seeing for over a year. They were screaming to tell him to turn around and get out. Everyone was typing something to try to warn him, to try to save him. The creature was still unknown to Robert. He moved close to the camera and kept pulling at his face. A minute went by, and I looked and the view count was 13,458. The side chat looked like a solid white line going up the side of the screen. Unreadable. The creature stepped forward and the mist started to envelop Robert. They again were face to face. It opened its mouth and I could see the rotten teeth started to drip thick coagulated venom on Robert. I looked down again, 27,589 viewers. The rotten venom dropped and it hit Robert's neck. He reached up and felt the drops and froze. His eyes widened and his face filled with fear. I could see his heart pounding as the veins of his neck pulsed. He could now see the creature. The fear turned for just a moment to confusion. The creature pulled one hand out from underneath his fur and gripped Robert's throat, and the other raised above his head and slashed down directly into his body. That instant, the screen went black. In large red letters it read, "This video has been corrupted." I looked down, 52,857 viewers. Just like before, the side chat went blank, and I looked down again, and the viewer count was 0. I scrambled to go to his channel and report what I had seen to YouTube. I went to my home screen, scrolled my subscribed list, and his channel was no longer there. I refreshed again and again and searched. Nothing. I looked for old videos of other people that had clipped his streams to make content. It was all gone. I went to Google, Facebook, Twitter, any social media I could think of. Again, nothing. Then I realized whatever was in his room simply erased him. I looked for weeks in the local North Carolina papers for any article or news of what may have happened. Not a single word. As far as the world was concerned, he no longer existed. What I saw never happened. I threw my laptop out and disconnected every device from the internet in my home. Everyone I tried to tell the story to told me I was crazy. I finally convinced myself what I had seen wasn't real. My mind had made it up. A few months later, I wandered into a bar and drank myself into oblivion. I walked into the bathroom, leaned over the sink to wash my face. I reached for a paper towel. I looked up, and the creature appeared in the mirror behind me. I logged into YouTube, and something happened.